They will join as we start.
You can begin, sir.
Okay. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. We have this fortnightly PG activity, which is done by IIP Pune, and this is 12th such activity that we are doing. And this is a very interesting case that was admitted in Jahangir Hospital under Dr. Bafna sir. And his student would be presenting the case. Dr. Shraddha would be presenting the case. And today we have very eminent faculty panelists to enlighten us. And we have Dr. Rajadhyaksha Madam, Dr. Adhikari sir, and Dr. Sushant Mane sir. So we look forward to learning a lot from all three faculty. Dr. Shraddha, you can begin the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My patient A, 11-year-old girl child, twin one, first by birth order, born of non-consanguineous marriage, resident of Pune, Hindu by religion, informant being mother who is reliable, admitted in February 2021 in our hospital with complaints of vomiting, which was on and off for 7 days, headache on and off for 7 days, and preferable to sleep for 2 days. Child was...
Dr. Shraddha, sorry to interrupt you. Can you share your screen?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, the screen is visible.
Screen is visible, Rajesh.
Oh, I think I am not able to. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So, child was apparently asymptomatic 7 days before when she developed vomiting, which were 5 to 6 episodes per day, non-bilious, non-projectile, containing undigested food particle, which were mainly occurring in morning time. And after oral medication, the episodes have decreased in frequency, but were persistent. Headache, which was on inquiry for 7 days, which was intermittent, mainly in frontal region, not associated with any diurnal variation, not associated with aura or photophobia. And it was not affecting the day-to-day activity of the child. Preferable to sleep for 2 days, where the child was obeying command, was opening eyes spontaneously and moving all 4 limbs. But it has increased from last 12 hours, where only on voice the child is opening the eyes but not able to do her day-to-day activity. There was no history of convulsion, no history of speech impairment, loss of memory, behavioral changes, no history of visual disturbance, squint, ptosis, drooling of saliva, deviation of angle of mouth, asymmetry of face, difficulty in swallowing and change in voice, no history of focal neurological deficit, no history of gait abnormality, loss of balance, involuntary movement, bowel bladder complaint. There was no history of fever, cough, cold, earache, ear discharge, or breathlessness, pallor. No history of loss of appetite or weight loss. No history of head injury. No history of polyuria, polydipsia. No history of abdominal distension, yellowish discoloration of eyes or high-colored urine. No history of decreased urine output or swelling over the body. No history of recent vaccination, and no history of TB or TB contact. Past history was not significant.
Okay. Dr. Shraddha, I think let us first try and analyze the case.
Okay, sir. Sir, so summary I should give, sir.
Yeah, so you go back to your presenting complaints.
Okay. So the presenting complaint was vomiting on and off for 7 days, headache on and off for 7 days, and preferable to sleep for 2 days.
So based on this, what system do you think is involved?
Mostly central nervous system, as she is preferable to sleep.
Okay, but suppose there is a child who has dengue. That
Okay,
child
sir.
also may have, say, vomiting, headache, and that child is also, say, dehydrated. So that child also will prefer to sleep, isn't it?
But there will be history of fever, sir.
Which is not there. Okay.
Which is not there.
Right. So this is a non-infectious problem.
Non-infectious.
Okay. All right.
Can you tell us a little about the headache? A little more.
Ma'am, actually headache was not the complaint with the child came. On inquiry, we got that the child was having headache, which was intermittent and was not affecting her day-to-day activity and was not associated with any aura or photophobia. And it was in frontal region mainly.
Did it wake her from sleep
No,
anytime?
ma'am. No, ma'am.
And no early morning headaches?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, continue.
Okay, ma'am.
So basically, you had vomiting and vomiting as a chief complaint, right? And excessive
Yes.
sleepiness in the last 2 days,
Yes, sir.
right? And headache
Yes.
you got on inquiry.
Inquiry.
And depending upon what you have discovered about headache, doesn't seem to be very significant because it is not affecting the day-to-day life of the child,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So you have these two complaints, predominantly vomiting and excessive sleepiness,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And you think probably this is a CNS involvement, or
Yes,
maybe a
sir.
CNS system which is involved. So
Yes, sir.
depending upon these two things, okay, can you localize what part of the CNS could be affected?
Sir, mostly the cerebral region.
Why do you say so? Yeah, why do you say cerebral region?
Means higher motor system is involved, sir, as there is altered sensorium preferable to sleep.
Okay. So then if you have a child, so in your negative issue, you don't have anything else which is involved, right? There is no cranial
Yes.
nerve affection, there is no focal
No,
deficit.
sir. No,
So
sir.
there is a little alteration, you can say, of your sensorium and vomiting. So
Yes, sir.
probably the cortical region or the higher areas of the
Higher.
brain are involved, right?
Yes, sir.
So depending upon these, can you have a rough etiological background in this? What could present as these two complaints?
Sir, there
What
may
all?
be any infection.
Okay, but you
Then
said there is
any
no fever.
no fever.
Okay.
Then any
Anything?
chronic infection or any bleed or any space occupying lesion
Yeah.
or metabolic abnormalities.
She's an 11-year-old female, right?
Yes, sir.
So first you said infection, right?
Yes,
so for
sir.
infection, what is going against infection?
There is no fever, sir. Also,
Yeah,
there
there
is
is. Yeah.
There is no fever. There is other no complaints. Also, no cough or any no past significant history. Also, sir.
Okay. So this is one thing that, so it may not always be the case that infections always come with fever, but yes, one important thing is there is no fever, so it goes against infection. Second, you said about icy bleed, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How does a bleed present? Now she is having complaints in 7 days on and off, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
And she's there. So how would a bleed present? So bleed
It-
comes under the categorization of stroke, right? You
Yes,
have
sir.
a hemorrhagic stroke, you have a thrombotic stroke.
Yes, yes, sir.
So how is the presentation of a hemorrhagic stroke?
It will be acute presentation and there will be
Yes.
focal neurological deficit
Yes. So
associated
it is
with
more
it.
acute kind of a thing.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Neurological deficits mostly are there. Sensorium may be affected a little more as compared to this check.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this seems a little less on the radar. Okay.
Yes,
And the
sir.
third, what you said, space occupying lesion,
Space occupying lesion.
right? So space
Yes, sir.
occupying lesion, can they present with headache, vomiting?
Yes, sir. They can present with headache and
What is the
vomiting.
reason for headache, vomiting in SOL?
Sir, there will be obstruction to the flow,
Yes.
and by that there
So
will be
basically,
increased intracranial pressure.
yes. Yes. So this comes a little higher as compared to your IC bleed, right?
Yes,
Your
sir.
SOL can be there. Focal neurological deficits, yes, but it depends since what time the SOL is sitting there in the body of the child.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Sometimes they may present initially with focal deficits or seizures, focal seizures, or sometimes they will present with signs of raised IC.
Raise IC.
And we have, so basically we have anatomically, we have supratentorial region and infratentorial region,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes,
So
sir.
if you're talking about SOLs, which SOLs are likely to be presenting more with signs of raised ICT?
Supratentorial SOL.
Why?
Sir, infratentorial SOL will
Yes.
present as the
Yes.
size. There is less space in infratentorial as well,
Yes.
so they will be present more earlier as
Absolutely.
compared to supratentorial as well.
Now go
Yes, sir.
go
Yeah, sorry. You can ask.
go to your negative and positive history.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
The
before
history of
that,
it, this
Yeah, before
Yeah.
that, if I may interrupt, Dr. Shraddha,
Yeah.
I think this is not a CNS case. I think this is a kidney problem. I think this is a uremic encephalopathy.
Could be urinary tract
No.
infection.
Yeah, why are we discussing CNS?
Sir,
How
if
do you
there is
justify this?
in urinary tract infection also there will be fever.
So this is a chronic kidney disease. And
Then
because of something, she's gone into an encephalopathy. You know that in case of a CKD, they also have vomiting.
yes, sir. But
Or
there
I am
will
saying
be,
this is anecteric liver cell failure.
sir, if there is
Encephalopathy.
liver cell failure, there will be other signs like yellowish discoloration of eyes. There might be
What about
abdominal distension also.
what about Ray's syndrome? That will be anecteric, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So absence of icterus does not rule out a liver disease.
Yes, sir.
So I'm not convinced that this is a CNS case.
Yeah, Dr.
Age of
Shraddha,
presentation.
Dr. Shraddha,
Yes, sir.
you have 7 days of vomiting and headache, no
Yes,
fever,
sir.
and 2
Yes, sir.
days possibly, child is preferring to sleep. What does it indicate? This entire, sequence of symptoms, what does it indicate?
That there is raised intracranial tension by that she
A
is having
problem which is,
preferable to sleep.
yeah, a clinical problem which is persistent and possibly it is worsening.
Worsening.
So in this connection, any relevance of history of, trauma or any drug? And if so, how and why? Any history of trauma?
No, sir. There is no history of any trauma.
Any medication intake?
No, sir.
Can any antiemetic taken, make a child feel drowsy and, child may prefer to sleep?
Metoclopramide can cause.
Like, already pointed out, we need not have to say that it is always a CNS. Maybe that so-called, drowsiness or little altered, or the preference to sleep could be drug-induced, possibly. But if you put all the constellation of these symptoms together, what does it indicate? Possibly a illness which is persistent and it is possibly progressive if you attribute
Yes,
it to neurological system.
yes, sir.
Which condition can cause vomiting, headache, and added to that comes, your features of altered sensorium, which all conditions then come to you in a child with a, say, febrile encephalopathy or something different. Since there is no fever, we are not. In the absence of fever, then I think you have already said,
Yes, sir.
space occupying lesion, you have already said. Anything other than that?
Metabolic abnormality.
Yes, true. Then?
So go to your history of etiology, the next slide. That is what we are trying to ask you.
Exactly.
The slide next to this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good.
Yeah. Can proceed.
Yeah. So this you have asked, right? So
Yes,
what Dr. Adhikari is asking or what Dr. Rajesh was asking. See, this could be a liver disease which is coming to us with a CNS presentation, right? Or this could be a kidney disease which is presenting to us with a CNS complaint. So then you should have your positive and negative history of etiology framed in that such a way that you get to the etiology. Okay,
Yes,
so it could be a primary CNS disorder, like what we discussed. It could be SOL or something like that, or what Dr. Rajesh was saying, it could be a primary disorder of some other system presenting to us with CNS presentation. Are you getting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So then whenever you asked all this negative and positive history, can you justify why have you asked all these things?
Sir, for liver etiology, I have asked about abdominal distension, yellowish discoloration of eyes, and high colored urine.
Okay.
For renal etiology, I have asked decreased urine output and swelling over the body.
Okay.
For diabetic ketoacidosis, I have asked about polyuria and polydipsia.
Okay.
And breathlessness history also I have asked. For ruling out infection, I have asked about fever. And for chronic infection like loss of appetite and weight loss.
Okay. So whenever we're talking about a renal complaint, you have mentioned about decreased urine output and swelling over the body, which is okay. Sir. What is one complaint which majority of the CKDs or chronic renal failure patients will have?
Acidotic
which can have
breathing.
which can have these repeated episodes of headache. And madam was asking early morning headaches, something related to that. What do kidney patients have on clinical examination? General examination finding.
Hypertension.
Yes. Okay. So can hypertension come with headache and vomiting?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So they can come,
They
right?
can come.
So that is what we are trying to ask you. So this is a CNS presentation, but etiologies can be multiple. The underlying system could be something else altogether. So then you have to ask other features suggestive of hypertension. What are the other features which can indicate in clinical history that the child may be hypertensive?
Any visual disturbances present?
Yes.
Then
Yes.
giddiness.
Yes. Because she's an 11-year-old child. She can tell all
Yes.
these things, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Why have you asked history of recent vaccination?
Sir, acute disseminating encephalomyelitis may present after vaccination.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, sir.
You said metabolic, Dr. Shraddha, you said metabolic etiology. What do you mean by metabolic?
Sir, any hypoglycemia, then increase in uric acid level, then increase in ammonia level, then electrolyte imbalance if present.
Right. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay. So coming to past history was not significant. Birth history, antenatally, age of conception of mother was 30 years. She was registered and immunized. There was no risk factor. Perinatal, she was born full term by LSCS, twin 2.3 kg birth weight, cried immediately after birth, and there is no history of NICU stay. Developmental history, appropriate for milestones were achieved, appropriate for age, and she goes to 6th standard and good in academics. Personal history, menarche is not achieved. Immunization history, she is immunized for age. As per diet history, mixed diet, total calorie requirement was 1800, intake was 1650, deficit was of 150 kilocalories. Protein required were 42 grams, intake was 36 and deficit was of 6 grams. Family history, there was twin pregnancy, she was twin 1 and the second twin is normal. Socioeconomic history, she belongs to upper middle class of modified Kuppuswamy scale. So coming to summary, as per the history, a 11-year-old girl child with history of headache, vomiting and altered sensorium, with no history of fever, behavioral changes, speech abnormality and cranial nerve involvement, with history suggestive of raised intracranial pressure, most likely acute encephalopathy, to rule out infection, metabolic encephalopathy and space occupying lesion.
Madam, you would like to ask Dr. Shraddha some questions about this summary that she's presented?
I'm still not convinced about the CNS etiology. I think we'll have to be a little broad-minded. Probably she knows the diagnosis, so she's going more in favor of that.
Yes, a bit biased, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think TBM should be still kept in mind, because fever may be a very insidious and not given much importance. And we've seen so many TBMs with no history of fever at all. Right. So I would still think of TBM as one of my major differential diagnosis. Right. And then, of course, kidney and other metabolic encephalopathies.
So, can any heavy metal cause this, Shraddha?
Yes, sir.
Any other, heavy metal can cause an afebrile encephalopathy with, gradually progressing headache, vomiting
Lead
later
poisoning.
on. Okay. May not be like, but it should be kept in mind in relevant scenarios. It can be one of the DDs. Can it be neurocysticercosis?
Yes, sir. It can be neurocysticercosis.
Okay.
But there should be episode of convulsion, also behavioral changes.
Need not be. There are, instances where there are multiple cysts. Even a single cyst sometimes can cause, blockage of CSF path, even though rare, but collectively, if you see, there are quite a few scenarios where,
Yes.
I think Madam Surekha would agree that can come down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When we say infection, it can be granuloma or TBM or anything.
Absolutely.
So that is, infection is top on the list for me here.
Like we discussed, SOL can have seizures, but it is not mandatory. They can come without focal seizures also. So it is not always the first thing or early thing. It can come much later or may not come also. So even SOL, granuloma, whatever it can be there. And without fever.
Metabolic disorder also present during adolescence, Dr. Shraddha? Need not have to go to the details, but can they? Are there variants?
Yes, sir. They can present.
Okay. Read it up. We will not, unnecessarily drag into this, but some of them can present for the first time even during the beginning of second decade also.
Okay. So Dr. Shraddha,
the thing is, okay, you have written differentials. Do you want to rearrange the differentials from what we discussed? So we have said infection first, metabolic second, SOL third.
Yes, sir.
So do you want to rearrange? Do you want to keep the same order of your differentials?
Infection will be the first, sir, as most common is infection.
Yes.
Then second, we will rule out metabolic after investigation and examination. We can comment, sir.
Okay. So whatever discussion what we have had since the last few minutes, okay, we have probably presenting with signs of raised ICT, right? Your SOL should come a little above as compared to metabolic. So infection SOL would be almost equal. Then you will have metabolic, right? Because metabolic, as we say.
When you say SOL, what is your differential diagnosis there for SOL?
Brain tumor, ma'am.
Only?
Talk about common things. So you said
brain abscess.
You said infratentorial, right? Would present more commonly with these symptoms, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
Any commoner etiologies than brain tumor? It is right. We are not saying this is wrong, but anything more common than brain tumor?
Tuberculoma.
Okay.
So what are the entities that are covered under SOL? That is what madam's question is. So when you say SOL, what do you mean?
Can it be a bleed?
Bleed, abscess.
Correct. Yeah. Bleed, abscess or a tumor. And when you say SOL, it can be a tuberculoma or a neurocystic sarcosis also becomes a space occupying lesion. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Dr. Shraddha,
yes,
can you use some adjectives to, maybe refine your summary? It is always a good idea to use adjectives. Dr. Adhikari sir has already given you some adjectives. Maybe you can try and use them.
Subacute onset of vomiting headache.
Okay, so you say this is an 11-year-old girl, okay, who has presented with an acute history, okay, of headache, vomiting, and altered sensorium. And these symptoms are persistent and worsening. Isn't it?
Yes.
And suggestive of raised intracranial pressure. So you would like to rule out this. So if you use adjectives, it becomes easier to kind of narrow down.
Okay, sir.
Can it be something beyond SOL? Can you think of any pathology or lesion underlying apart from SOL? What are the other causes of raised intracranial pressure apart from SOL?
So in other words, if you do an MRI, it is normal, but the child is having raised ICP. What is this entity?
You heard of pseudotumor cerebri?
Yes. Idiopathic intracranial hypertension.
Yeah. What does it mean? Raised CSF pressure with no mass lesion.
Yes.
So pseudotumor cerebri can also present with raised ICP.
Yes, sir.
And history of medication is very important. In the past, we used to see with tetracycline, minocycline, nalidixic acid, etc. You know,
Yes,
long-term steroids also can give rise to raised ICP.
I think now we have to be more careful about vitamin D and vitamin A.
Yeah.
Probably. Yes, so you can proceed, I think, Dr. Shraddha.
Okay, sir. On examination, vitals, temperature was 98.5 degree Fahrenheit, pulse rate was 102 per minute, peripheral pulses were feeble, low volume, regular. There was no radioradial and radiofemoral delay present. Respiratory rate was 24 per minute regular. BP was 110 by 70 millimeter of Hg in right arm. And SpO2 was 98% on room air. On anthropometry, weight actual was 34.5 kg, expected was 35 kg, which lies between 25th to 50th centile. Height was 145 centimeter, expected was 143 centimeter, which was between 50th to 75th centile. BMI was 16.4, which was between 25th to 50th centile. And as per anthropometry, the growth was normal.
So
on general examination.
Sorry to interrupt you. With a normal growth, what becomes unlikely now?
Chronic disease.
Yes. Okay. So end organ failures become unlikely now, isn't it? So CKD, that becomes little less likely now.
Yes.
In your vitals, you said the pulse was little low volume, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So feeble and low volume. What could be the reason?
Sir, maybe she is dehydrated because of persistent vomiting.
Correct.
And because of drowsiness, her oral intake has been decreased.
Right.
What else does it indicate, Dr. Shraddha, this kind of vital parameter in the given scenario?
What, sir?
You have a child with headache, vomiting, and her preference to sleep, something to suggest altered sensorium.
Yes, sir.
In background, what would you make out through this particular vital parameters that you have? Suppose the pulse rate instead of 102 is suppose say 62 here.
Then because of raised intracranial pressure, she is going into bradycardia.
Okay. What would happen initially then to the blood pressure?
There will be hypertension.
Okay.
Bradycardia and irregular breathing.
Okay. So if you have a combination of say bradycardia, hypertension and a feeble pulse, that means possibly, it is a acute emergency scenario. The compensatory further ischemia is going to result if you don't intervene here, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So in this setting, if you have a constellation of these findings, ICT, yes, possibility is there, but this is, you have got a window period where possibly, you can institute the therapy at the right time. Yes, on the contrary, you have a bradycardia or any one of the component of that, Cushing's triad. Most of the workup can wait, child goes into emergency management first, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So that's the importance of. So what do you attribute it? Only dehydration, feeble pulse, any other possibility?
Hypoxia.
Your SpO2 is 98%. Suppose if you have to take a combination, suppose, an undiagnosed, say, cardiac problem and a neurological, like ma'am said, brain abscess is a possibility sometimes. It usually comes with a fluoride cyanotic, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Is there any kind of a cardiac problem which can result in, maybe a feeble pulse and also neurological thing?
Any thrombosis?
Okay, but you would get some asymmetry in that case, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Any kind of arteriopathy, vasculitis or whatever, along with feeble pulse, then you have to, like you have already mentioned, all other peripheral pulses, I think, are normal. If you find an asymmetry or one side feeble or the other side normal, those kinds of indication on the pulse will give you a clue to the possibility of a vasculitis.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right.
General examination, eyes were sunken. tongue was dry, some pallor was present, peripheral cyanosis present. There was no jaundice, lymphadenopathy or edema. Extremities were cold, skin and spine normal and Tanner stage 2. CNS examination wise, child was drowsy, preferable
Just a second. Does absence of jaundice rule out a possibility of a hepatic involvement? Like
No,
initially told? Which scenario you can have encephalopathy features? No jaundice, but liver is involved?
Ray's syndrome.
Okay. Which one?
Ray's syndrome.
Yeah, so this general examination features what you have. There is a feeble pulse, then the eyes are sunken, tongue is dry, you have peripheral cyanosis. What do you think clinically the patient is into right now?
Compensated shock.
Sorry?
In shock.
Okay, he's in shock. So it is an emergency condition or a non-emergency condition?
Emergency condition.
Okay, so then if we, just depending upon the general examination, okay, what we have here, we are still not seeing the CNS findings. If you go back to your DDs, you said infection, SOL and metabolic, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Out of that, which is most important now at this stage?
SOL.
Metabolic.
Why SOL?
Why SOL? SOL would be an indolent presentation, right? We just discussed.
Yes, sir.
It would be a ongoing progressive illness, something like that. Again, infection, acute infection won't be like that. Metabolic, right? Metabolic,
yes, sir.
We've discussed kidney, we've discussed liver. We just said that liver can come without jaundice.
Yes.
And then you also asked in your negative history about DKA, right?
Yes, sir.
So all of these metabolic would come with a CNS-like presentation with features of shock on your general examination, right?
Yes, sir.
So till now, metabolic seems much prominent as compared to the other two ones. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead with your CNS examination.
Before that, you said the skin and spine is normal. What specifically did you look for in the skin or the spine?
Sir, if in case of any head injury or trauma, there will be bruises over the skin, and the spine, means cervical spine, maybe have some injury. Then there are some encephalopathy where there may be a neurocutaneous marker.
Okay.
Dr. Shraddha,
Sir?
This is suppose an adolescent girl, like ma'am talked about, benign intracranial hypertension. In an adolescent girl, what other general examination finding you may look at, which is not very uncommon? Suppose the girl is on the higher side of weight.
Obesity.
Suppose there is an acne present,
Yes, sir.
So any other condition which can also result in pseudotumor kind of a thing, and general examination finding may give you a clue. Yes, 13, 14-year-old, premenopausal sometimes, or even during, or rather, pre-pubertal age group se leke puberty tak, you can have a thing. Can PCOD kind of a complex present like this?
Yes, sir.
They have a propensity for?
PCOD can present, sir.
Yeah. So general
Cavernous
examination
sinus.
finding, if you find, obesity, sometimes, hyperpigmentation and acne.
Yes, sir.
Just a clue on general examination in a given scenario. Okay?
Okay,
Particularly in adolescent.
yes, sir.
Right.
CNS examination. Child was drowsy, preferable to sleep. Glasgow Coma scale is 11/15, where eye opening to verbal command was there, withdrawal to painful stimulus, and she was confused. Orientation, memory, and intelligence could not be tested. Cranial nerve examination, olfactory nerve not tested. Optic nerve, pupillary reflex were present. Bilateral pupils were equal and reacting to light. Fundus has papilloedema. Oculomotor, fourth and sixth cranial nerve, extraocular movements were equal in all four contracts and was able to lift upper eyelid. Trigeminal nerve, facial sensation were intact and chewing movements were not tested. Corneal and conjunctival reflex were present, jaw jerk was present. Facial nerve, there was no facial asymmetry. 8th cranial nerve was not tested. Glossopharyngeal and vagus nerve, palatal and pharyngeal reflex were present. Uvula was in midline and hypoglossal tongue was in center.
Can you go back to the first slide on CNS just for a second?
Yes, sir.
Go back. Why do you see it's preferable to sleep? Was she arousable and responsive?
Sir,
no.
She was not arousable, but eye opening was present to verbal command.
Okay.
But she was not following any commands, but she was opening the eyes.
Okay, that's why you could not test eighth nerve also, and you did not test for memory and intelligence.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Okay, sir. Then bulk of muscle was equal in bilateral upper limb and lower limb. Tone was normal in all four limbs and power was 3/5 in all four limbs. Deep tendon reflexes, bicep, triceps and supinator was 2+. Knee reflex and ankle reflex was 3+. Superficial reflex, abdominal reflex was present and plantar reflex were extensor on bilateral side. Cerebellar signs, there was no nystagmus and titubation. Coordination could not be tested. Sensory system, cortical sensation could not be tested. Peripheral sensation, able to perceive painful stimulus. Other sensation could not be tested. There was no meningeal sign. Skull and spine was normal. On other system examination, respiratory system, the rate was 24 per minute. Regular, there was no retraction. Air entry was bilaterally equal and clear. CVS examination, heart sound S1, S2 are normal and there was no murmur. And per abdomen was soft, non-tender, no distension and no organomegaly.
Why did you get an extensor plantar in this child? What is the significance?
Raised intracranial tension causes extensor.
Any other false localizing signs of raised ICT was there?
What are the false localizing signs?
Which is very common. Which is the common one you see? Which is the common one that you see? Not clonus. Which is the common one that you see?
Clonus you have to examine, right?
Yes, sir.
This, even if you don't touch the patient, just by observation, you can pick up this sign. What Dr. Rajesh is asking.
Something related to a cranial nerve. False localizing sign. Which cranial nerve? Okay, we'll give you a clue. It's the longest cranial nerve. It has the longest course, rather. There's a long course.
Vagus nerve?
Not vagus.
So, to be more specific, longest intracranial course.
Facial nerve.
No, not facial. Okay, one now before that. Go one number before that. So facial is which number?
Abducent nerve, 6th cranial nerve.
Yes.
Why is it affected? With raised ICP, why do you get 6th nerve affection? Because with raised ICP, it displaces the brain stem downwards, and this stretches the 6th nerve and results in paralysis of lateral gaze and diplopia. So it's a false localizing sign of raised ICP.
Okay.
Dr. Shraddha, what else will you observe when you give a painful stimulus in a child of this kind of presentation?
Flexor response or extensor response?
Yeah, posturing and extensor response. Decerebrator, they can be, when you give a painful stimulus, this can become more obvious, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
So what has your examination added to your history? Let us...
fundus, did she mention fundus?
Yeah, yes, she's not mentioned fundus.
No, ma'am, I have
she's mentioned.
Yes.
There is papilledema. She's mentioned that.
Is it?
Where is it?
Yeah, I think in the table. Go back to your table, Shraddha. The cranial nerve examination table.
Yes, sir, I'm going.
Yeah, it's mentioned in cranial nerves.
Dr. Shraddha, highlight that. Whatever is abnormal.
Yeah.
Highlight it.
Yeah, fundus.
Why is it? What is papilledema?
And also say whether that papilledema unilateral, bilateral, asymmetrical, what is it? And what is the relevance of that?
Bilateral papilloedema was there, sir.
Okay.
So what is papilledema? Madam has asked you an important question. So if suppose you examine and somebody tells you, or you find out that there is papilledema, what does that tell you? Or how do you know it is papilledema?
Optic disc swelling secondary to raised ICP.
Why do you get it? Do you know? It's a very important sign, extremely important. Because the optic nerve sheath is continuous with the subarachnoid space. So if there's raised intracranial tension, it's transmitted via the subarachnoid space to the optic nerve sheath. And therefore you get this swelling of the optic disc, which is called papilledema. Continue, Shraddha.
So Shraddha, suppose papilledema is not present. Does that mean that there is no raised ICT? Does it confirm that the child does not have raised ICT?
No, sir. Even if not present, there may be raised ICP.
Why? Just now we said if there is a raised in intracranial pressure, then papilledema is there. Now we are saying that it may not be there. So why so? So it takes time for the papilledema to develop. Yeah, if the ICP rises very fast, you may not have papilledema.
And why PAR is 3/5, Dr. Shraddha? Normal bulk, normal tone.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, the child was drowsy. So against resistance, we were not able to check the power of the child. So for painful stimulus, she was eliminating gravity. She was doing flexion. So it is 3/5, sir.
Okay. Otherwise, particularly when a child say, they resist your examination or, you try to give a painful stimulation, the force with which, that will give you an indication that possibly power may be normal. And yes, in the absence of altered tone, yes, at times, that agonist antagonic kind of a thing where you may feel that, power is misinterpreted as less, but it may be actually preserved.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. In an altered sensorium, yes, voluntary component, cannot be tested, no doubt. That's acceptable.
Dr. Shraddha, suppose you have the same child, but you find that there is a focal deficit, maybe an hemiplegia. Would your diagnosis change? You understood my question?
Yes, sir, I understood.
Yeah. So similar presentation, headache, vomiting, lethargy, and now a focal deficit.
What would be your differential then?
There may be any stroke which is causing or thrombosis which is causing the focal neurological deficit, or any space occupying lesion in the cortex.
Okay, so your first duty was infection. Can infection come with focal deficit, with headache and vomiting?
Tuberculoma can present with focal neurological deficit.
So tuberculoma becomes SOL, right?
Yes, sir.
We have already spoken about it. We are talking about non-SOL lesions. So you have signs of raised ICT, headache, vomiting, and now we are telling that it may be associated. I suppose if there is an associated focal deficit. So you said that it could be a stroke. Yeah. Okay. So if we are talking about intracranial infection, right, a subacute or a chronic, whatever.
Yes, sir.
What is the reason of stroke in such infections? Why do you get stroke in such infections? Because of what?
What is involved?
Yeah.
Which anatomical structure or what is involved?
Vessel thromboembolic manifestation.
So vasculitis, isn't it?
Vasculitis, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So still your DDs are same. That is what we're trying to tell you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Even if this patient had a focal deficit, what DDs you have given infection, that all again comes, SOL again comes. Okay. Just
Yes,
the priority goes up and down.
So your metabolic, however, would go down. So
Yes.
if you have suppose an hyperammonemia, then they would not likely to have focal deficit.
Absolutely.
Would you like to look for flapping tremor?
Yes, sir.
In any child with this kind of presentation, what's the relevance?
Hepatic encephalopathy can present with flapping tremors.
Okay. Fine.